At 20, I witnessed my parents sell the gaming PC I built for my sister's designer spree. I walked out, cut ties, built my own life, and let their begging echo. Let me start with the family dynamics, because honestly, that's the root of everything. I, 20, male, grew up in a house where there were clear rules about who mattered and who didn't. My sister, 17, female, was the star of the show, the princess, the one who could do no wrong. And me? Well, I was the one who worked behind the scenes, doing everything I could to keep the house running, and yet never getting any recognition for it. I was just the guy who kept his head down and did what he was told. You'd think it would be the other way around, right? The older sibling should be the one who's treated like they matter, the one who's expected to set an example. But that wasn't the case. I was always second best, just there to pick up the slack. My sister, on the other hand, was spoiled beyond belief. She was the one who got everything she wanted, no matter what. Clothes, toys, gadgets. If she wanted it, it was hers. I learned early on that if she cried, if she threw a tantrum, my parents would bend over backward to make her happy. And the worst part? She wasn't even that talented. I mean, yeah, she could do stuff, but it was never anything special. There was no reason she should have been treated like a genius except for the fact that she was the youngest and could throw the biggest tantrum. I was always told, your sister needs it more than you do, or she's just a kid, she doesn't know better. The excuses were endless. But here's the kicker, she wasn't a prodigy. She wasn't the next big thing. She didn't have some special talent that justified all the attention and resources. She was just there, and she knew how to use that to her advantage. She never had to lift a finger. She didn't have to work for anything. All she had to do was cry, complain, or whine, and bam, everything she wanted appeared at her feet. My parents would shower her with gifts for doing the bare minimum, while I'd get nothing but don't be selfish if I ever asked for anything. She treated me like dirt, too. Honestly, I was just there to do the heavy lifting, literally and figuratively. If something broke in the house, guess who had to fix it? Me. If something needed cleaning or organizing, guess who had to do it? Me. Meanwhile, she'd just sit there scrolling through her phone or doing whatever she did, and my parents would just let her get away with it. Oh, and if she ever needed help with her homework, that was all me. I'd spend hours helping her with things she could have easily done herself. And what did I get in return? Absolutely nothing. Not a thank you, not a pat on the back, just the reminder that you're the older brother. You should be setting an example. But I wasn't allowed to have a bad day. I wasn't allowed to get tired of carrying the weight. When she didn't do her homework or she failed a test, it was on me to help her catch up. But if I made a mistake or didn't get something right, well, then I was the one who was lazy or ungrateful. The thing that really drove me crazy was how my sister was treated like the center of the universe, but she never did anything to deserve it. It wasn't like she had some massive talent that justified all the attention. She didn't play an instrument or excel at school. No, her main talent was being the youngest, the one who could cry the loudest and get what she wanted. She never had to fight for anything in her life. She was handed things without ever having to ask, and then when I would try to do the same thing, I was told I should be grateful for whatever scraps were left behind. It was like I was invisible in my own house, always having to make room for her. She never had to share anything. The toys, the gifts, the attention. It was all hers, and mine was always second. She'd get upset if anything didn't go her way, and my parents would fix it right then and there. Meanwhile, I was expected to deal with it and be mature. One day, I got fed up. I was 10 years old, and I had just saved up enough money to buy a brand new bike. I was beyond excited, right? This bike was going to be my escape, my reward for all the hard work. But instead of getting to enjoy it, my sister threw a fit because she didn't get one too. You know what happened? My parents gave her a bike as well. Just like that. They didn't even ask me if I was okay with it. They didn't ask if I cared. They just handed her the same damn bike and expected me to be fine with it. And you know what? I had to act like I was fine with it because if I made a fuss, I'd look like the jerk. I started to resent my sister, not just for getting everything, but for not even appreciating it. And as for my parents, they just let it happen. It didn't matter how much I worked or how hard I tried to be the responsible one. Nothing was ever enough. That's when I decided to put everything into something that was just mine. My gaming PC. I built it with my own money, every part chosen and assembled with my own hands. It was the one thing I could claim as my own. But then, in the most messed up twist of fate, my parents decided my sister's shopping spree was more important than my hard work. They sold my PC for $1,200, the same price they could have spent on her clothes. They didn't even ask me. They didn't even care that it was something I'd put together piece by piece. That was the moment I snapped. That was when I realized I wasn't just the second child. I was the afterthought. My sister's needs always came first. I wasn't even allowed to have anything that was mine without her having something to match it. When I confronted my parents about it, I didn't hold back. "You sold my gaming PC for her clothes," I said, shoving the sale papers in their faces. They had no response. My mom tried to justify it, but the look in her eyes told me everything I needed to know. She'd always taken her side, always defended her. It didn't matter how much I sacrificed, how hard I worked, and in that moment, I knew they weren't going to change. So, I did what I had to do. I cut ties. After everything that went down with my sister's birthday and the gaming PC, I thought it couldn't get worse. I thought I had finally reached the bottom of the barrel, but no, my family had one more card to play, and this time it wasn't a game. I'd spent a couple of weeks letting everything settle after I confronted my parents. At first, I thought they might actually listen. You know, maybe they'd realize what they had done, apologize, and try to make things right. But no, they were too busy being caught up in their perfect little bubble, all while I was left standing there watching everything that was mine get trampled over. It wasn't like they didn't know how I felt. Hell, I made it clear. But my dad, he was too busy watching whatever game he was following on TV to care about anything else. And my mom, she spent most of her time trying to justify everything that had happened, as if I should just accept that I'd been treated like trash for years. For those first few weeks after the PC incident, I went through the motions. I worked, I streamed, and I kept my head down. My apartment was quiet, peaceful even. The silence felt like freedom. For the first time in a long time, I didn't have to listen to the constant undermining, the guilt trips, or the feeling that I was invisible. It was just me, my PC, and my own space. But then one day, it all came rushing back. My mom sent me a message. Simple, "We miss you." I didn't respond, not right away. There was a part of me that wanted to be the bigger person, to somehow bridge the gap and make things right, but another part of me knew better. This wasn't about missing me, this was about guilt. They missed the idea of having me around, doing everything for them, helping my sister with her homework, fixing things around the house, paying for whatever they needed with money I had earned. They didn't miss me. They missed the convenience. Still, curiosity got the best of me. I didn't respond, but I kept the message there. Days passed, and I kept hearing from them in little bursts. Texts asking how I was doing, how my work was going. I didn't reply. I wasn't going to fall for their manipulation, but the calls didn't stop. I figured I'd be left alone for a while. I mean, after the whole "you sold my stuff" incident, I figured they'd give me some space, but nope. My dad called a week after the last text. "Hey son," he said, his voice sounding different. "I know things have been rough, but I just wanted to let you know we're still here. You know, if you need us." That pissed me off instantly. He was still acting like I was the one who needed them, like they hadn't just betrayed me, like I hadn't spent years being the invisible kid in the family, doing everything for everyone and getting nothing in return. "You're here?" I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral. "Funny how I don't feel that way." He sighed. "Look, I know we've made mistakes. I just don't want this to be the end." I almost laughed. "What do you want from me, Dad? An apology? Because it's not like that's ever happened before." There was a long pause. "I know," he said quietly, "but I'm trying here. For you? For the family?" "Family?" I scoffed. "You mean the same family that sold my PC for my sister's clothes?" He didn't have an answer for that. He never did. They always had excuses, but they never took responsibility. "I can't change the past, son," he said, his voice almost pleading now, "but I can try to make things right." I stood up and paced around my apartment, feeling my temper rise. I didn't know what I was more frustrated with. The fact that he was still trying to justify his actions, or the fact that he thought a few words would fix everything. Make things right by doing what? By trying to guilt trip me back into your lives. I've been the good son for too long. I've been the one who picked up the pieces, who helped with everything while my sister got whatever she wanted. And now you want me to come back and pretend it didn't happen? I took a deep breath, trying to control myself. "You're too late." There was silence on the other end. He wasn't used to me talking back like this. For years, I'd been the one who just took it, who accepted whatever they threw my way. But now, I wasn't having it anymore. "I don't need you, Dad," I said, the words coming out before I could stop them. "I'm not coming back. You've had plenty of chances to treat me like I mattered, but you didn't. So now I'm done." I could hear him trying to say something, but I didn't wait for him to finish. "Goodbye, Dad." And that was it. I hung up the phone, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel bad. I felt relieved. The next day, I made a decision. I was done. I was done with them. Done with the whole family dynamic. I wasn't going to beg for their approval anymore. I wasn't going to play the role of the good son just so they could use me as a safety net. It wasn't easy, but I started looking for a new place. I didn't want to just move out of my apartment. I wanted to get as far away from them as possible. I needed my space. I needed to be free from the people who had made me feel like I wasn't enough. But I wasn't going to leave without making sure they understood. I'd spent years being invisible in my own home, and I wasn't going to leave quietly. I wrote them a letter. I didn't want a big dramatic confrontation. I didn't need them to try to talk me out of it. It was short and simple, just the truth. I've put up with your selfishness for too long. I'm done being taken for granted. Don't contact me unless you're ready to apologize. I left the letter on the kitchen counter the next morning and walked out. I didn't hear from them for a few days after I left that note. At first, it was peaceful. I felt this weight lift off my shoulders, like I was finally free from the constant chaos of my family. No more phone calls from my sister asking for things. No more guilt trips from my mom. No more pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. It was just me, my apartment, and the freedom to live life the way I wanted. But that peace didn't last long. It started with a text from my mom, a simple message, "We miss you." I rolled my eyes. I knew exactly what that meant. It wasn't about missing me. It wasn't about love. It was about guilt. They missed the person who always did the work, the person who always picked up the slack. They missed the convenience of having someone who would just fix things when they broke, who would give them money when they needed it, who would help my sister with her homework. They didn't miss me. They missed the idea of me. But I didn't respond. I didn't give them the satisfaction. A couple of days later, my dad tried his luck. He sent a message that read, "I've been thinking a lot. I know I screwed up, and I just want to make things right. Can we talk?" I didn't even open the message. The fact that he was reaching out now after everything felt like a joke. I wasn't about to just fall in line and pretend like none of this happened. I wasn't going to be their good son again just because they wanted me back in their lives. I'd spent years trying to get their approval only to watch them fawn over my sister while I did all the work. I wasn't going to go back to being invisible. Not after everything. I kept my phone on silent, kept living my life. Work was steady and I was still streaming regularly. My numbers were going up and it felt good. I was building something real, something that was all mine, and for once, I wasn't living in the shadow of my sister's perfect, easy life. A few days later, I got another message. But this time, it wasn't from my parents. It was from my sister. "Mom's not doing well. She's in the hospital. You should come home. It's the right thing to do." I stared at my phone for a second, trying to hold in the frustration that bubbled up. My sister didn't get it. She never did. She thought I'd drop everything and come running just because something went wrong. That was how it always worked. She never had to try. She never had to struggle. She just got to play the victim when things didn't go her way, and everyone else had to pick up the pieces. I wasn't playing that game anymore. I wasn't her backup. I wasn't going to be the one who always had to make everything better. So I texted back, "I'm not coming." The response I got was exactly what I expected. "You don't even care about Mom, do you?" It wasn't a question. It was an accusation, and it stung, but not because it was true. No, it stung because it was so typical. She thought everything revolved around her. She thought I was supposed to drop everything for her again. I didn't respond. The next couple of weeks passed in this odd, quiet limbo. My sister kept texting me about Mom's condition, trying to guilt me into coming back. But the thing was, I wasn't going back. Not for her, not for anyone. My mom and dad had made their choices, and now they had to live with them. Then came the call. My dad sounding even more desperate this time. "Please, son, we're not asking for you to forgive us right now, but we need you here. Your mom needs you. You can't just turn your back on your family." And I almost laughed, but instead, I let him talk. When he was done, I took a deep breath. "Dad, you don't get it. I've spent years being the one who always does the work, always sacrifices, always tries to be the good son. And for what? You sold my gaming PC without asking. You've put my sister first my whole life. And now you think I'm just going to drop everything for you? You've never once treated me like I mattered. You've never treated me like I was worth anything more than a tool to help fix the problems you guys created." There was silence on the other end. I knew he didn't have a comeback for that. He couldn't. Everything I said was the truth, and he knew it. "I understand," he said quietly, "but I hope you'll come back one day. I don't want to lose you." And just like that, I realized something. He wasn't asking for forgiveness. He wasn't apologizing. He was just trying to get me back because it was convenient for him, because things were falling apart. And suddenly, he needed me. "I'm not coming back, Dad," I said, my voice firm. "I'm not your backup. I'm not going to be the one who fixes everything. Not this time. You had your chance. I hung up before he could respond. That was it. I wasn't going back to that house. I wasn't going to be the one to pick up the pieces anymore. I wasn't going to sacrifice myself just to make them feel better. The next morning, I started looking for a new place. It wasn't that my current apartment was bad, but I wanted a fresh start. I wanted to be completely free of their mess. I found a new place about a week later. Nothing fancy, just a small, quiet studio in a neighborhood that felt a little more like home. The rent was affordable, and I wasn't going to have to deal with anyone else's. It was perfect. I moved in as soon as I could, and when I walked into that place, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. I wasn't running from my family anymore. I wasn't hiding. I was finally, truly living for myself. Moving out was like breathing for the first time in years. I wasn't kidding when I said I was finally free. Sure, I still had to deal with the consequences of everything that happened, but it was different now. It wasn't my problem anymore. I wasn't the one who had to clean up their mess. I wasn't the one who had to hold the family together. The new place was small but cozy. A little studio apartment with minimal furniture, a couple of things I picked up here and there, and my gaming setup in the corner. I didn't need much. Just a place where I didn't feel like I was suffocating under the weight of everyone else's expectations. I'd made it finally. I was living on my own terms, doing things I wanted to do. The first few days, I just settled in. I unpacked, set up my PC, and started organizing things the way I liked. I didn't have to worry about my sister complaining about how loud the games were or my mom walking in and asking me to help with something. It was just quiet, peaceful. But of course, the peace didn't last long. It started with my sister. A few days after I moved in, I got another text from her. "Why aren't you coming to visit? Mom's asking about you." I just stared at the message for a while. I didn't even want to respond. I wasn't going back into their mess. Not this time. But part of me wondered if she was just trying to manipulate me into coming back. After all, that's what she did best, right? Use whatever emotional guilt she could to get me to do what she wanted. I didn't reply. Instead, I went back to doing what I was doing. I wasn't going to let her drag me back into the family circus. The next day, my phone rang. It was my mom. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity got the better of me. "Son," she said, her voice wavering a bit, "why don't you come over? It's been too long. Your dad and I, we miss you." I let her talk for a minute, but I wasn't buying it. I'd heard this line before. This wasn't about missing me. This was about guilt. They wanted me back because things weren't going the way they planned. They wanted me to come back and fix everything for them again, like I always had. "I'm not coming back," I said, cutting through the conversation. "Not unless things change. I'm done being the family's backup." There was a pause on the other end. I could hear her trying to figure out what to say. "Your dad is really struggling, son. He's trying. We're trying. We just want to fix things." "Fix things?" I shot back. "You had your chance to fix things, and you didn't. You chose my sister over me every single time. You sold my stuff without asking. You've treated me like I'm invisible, like I'm just here to take care of everything. And now when things are going south, you want me to come back and clean up. I'm not doing that anymore." I could hear her breathing, like she was trying to hold it together. "You're being unreasonable. We're your family. We need you." I wasn't about to fold. "You needed me when it was convenient for you. I'm not your safety net anymore. I'm living my own life, and it doesn't involve going back to the way things were." The silence between us stretched out. She didn't say anything else. I wasn't expecting an apology. I wasn't expecting them to change overnight, but I wasn't going to let them drag me back into that mess. Not now. Not ever again. I hung up the phone feeling a little lighter. It felt good to stand my ground. It felt good to finally tell them that I wasn't going to let them use me anymore. The next week went by with no more calls from my parents. My sister tried a few more times, but I didn't respond. The silence was golden. I was finally free of the constant barrage of guilt and manipulation. It was like I had stepped out of a fog, and for the first time in years, I could see clearly. I threw myself into work. I picked up more freelance jobs, expanded my streaming schedule, and started building a community of people who actually appreciated me for my skills. I didn't need validation from my parents or my sister. I was making my own way. One night, I was streaming when I got a message notification. I saw it was from my mom. I almost didn't open it, but something in me made me check it. It was a simple text. "We miss you. Please come home." I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. I wasn't going to fall for it. I wasn't going to play the game again. I was building something here, something real, and I wasn't going to let them destroy it. A few weeks later, I ran into an old family friend at the grocery store. We chatted for a while, and then they dropped something that made me feel a little better about my decision. "I hear your parents are having money problems," they said casually. "They've been asking around for help. I guess things aren't going so well with your sister." I didn't show any reaction, but inside I couldn't help but smile. "Really?" I said, pretending to sound surprised. "That's too bad." Wasn't that I enjoyed their struggles. It was just that for once, I wasn't the one being blamed. I wasn't the one picking up the pieces for them anymore. They had to deal with the consequences of their actions. When I got back home, I thought about everything, about how I'd been the one who always sacrificed, always gave in, always tried to make everything work. And now I was in control. I didn't need to answer to anyone. I had built my own life, my own future, and no one was going to take that away from me. Life after I moved out was like the first breath of fresh air you get after being underwater too long. It wasn't perfect, and I wasn't exactly living the dream, but I finally had control. I had my own space, my own schedule, and a sense of independence that I hadn't known existed. The silence in my apartment wasn't just peaceful, it was mine. It felt good. No more walking around on eggshells, no more pretending everything was okay when it wasn't. I could do what I wanted when I wanted, and the only person I had to answer to was myself. I threw myself into work. Freelance gigs, more gaming streams, and slowly but surely, I started building my brand. It was like a snowball effect. The more I put into it, the more I got out. My numbers went up, and with it came a sense of purpose I'd never really felt before. The days blurred together in a good way. I didn't have anyone constantly interrupting me or trying to guilt-trip me into doing things I didn't want to do. No phone calls from my mom asking if I was still angry or my sister texting me every few days to complain about something that didn't concern me. I didn't need to check in with them anymore. And that felt like freedom. But of course, nothing lasts forever. Even though I wasn't looking for trouble, trouble always found a way to show up. A couple of weeks after I'd settled into my new routine, I got a message that made me pause. It was from my dad. "Can we talk? I think it's time for us to settle things." I stared at the message for a long time. I wasn't sure what I expected, but this wasn't it. Was this an apology, a manipulation, or just another attempt to pull me back into the same toxic cycle? For a moment, I almost ignored it. I had been doing so well, I didn't need them to screw that up, but then something made me open the message. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe, just maybe, a part of me wanted to know if they were finally going to acknowledge the damage they had done. "So?" I responded. "Settle what?" I typed, keeping it simple. His response came almost immediately. "We've been talking. Your mom, me, we want to make things right. We're not perfect, but we miss you. Please come home." The please hit me like a brick. I sat back, staring at the screen, and something twisted in my gut. There was a part of me that wanted to rush over there and fix everything. Be the good son again. Make them happy. Make everything go back to the way it was. But that wasn't the truth. The truth was, I had built something for myself, something real, and I wasn't going to let them pull me back into their chaos. I closed my phone without replying, but the next few days they kept coming. My mom sent texts. "We're all worried about you. My sister, Ever the manipulator, got in on it too. Why won't you come back? Things are so messed up without you." And then there was the ever-popular line from my dad, "Your mom is sick and we need you." I could almost hear them all saying the same thing. "You owe us. You've always been the one who fixed things. Now we need you to fix us." But I wasn't buying it. I wasn't the one who had screwed everything up. I wasn't the one who had taken advantage of every situation, manipulated my way into getting what I wanted. They had created their own mess. They had to deal with it. I was done being their cleanup crew. So I did what I knew I had to do. I ignored them. Every call, every text, every email, I didn't want to hear it. I was done. I was living for the first time in my life, and I wasn't going to let them steal that from me. But here's where it gets interesting. I wasn't expecting the universe to throw a curveball, but it did. One day, while I was streaming, having a good time, just talking to my viewers, an old family friend popped into the chat. I didn't even know they knew I streamed, but there they were under some generic username. "Hey," they typed. "Your parents are going through it. I'm not sure what's going on, but they're having a hard time. They've been asking everyone for help." I wasn't sure what I felt in that moment. Part of me felt satisfied, like I had finally walked away and gotten what I needed. Another part of me felt something else. I wasn't sure if it was guilt or just pity, but whatever it was, it gnawed at me for a second. Still, I didn't respond to them directly. I didn't need to. They had their chance. A few days later, I was out running errands when I ran into someone I hadn't seen in a while, an old high school friend. We caught up for a bit, and when I mentioned how things were going in my life, they casually, dropped something that made me pause. "I heard your parents have been struggling financially," they said. "I didn't realize things were that bad." I wasn't surprised. After all the money they spent on my sister's gifts, her designer clothes, her vacations, it was only a matter of time before they hit a financial wall. They had been living beyond their means for years, pouring everything into her life while ignoring mine, and yet even with that knowledge, I didn't feel sorry for them. Not anymore. They had made their choices, and now they had to face the consequences. It wasn't my problem anymore. When I got home that night, I found a text from my sister. "Mom's in the hospital again. Please, we need you. You can't just walk away from the family." I read the text and then set my phone down. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me into coming back. I wasn't going to let my parents use my sister's health as another way to pull me back into the chaos. This wasn't about me. It was about them, about their need to control me and guilt me into doing what they wanted. I didn't respond. Instead, I turned on my stream, focused on my work, and let the world outside fade away. Because for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel the need to fix everything for everyone else. I was living, and that was enough. At this point, it felt like I was living in two worlds. One where I was building a life on my own, free from the baggage of my past, and another where my family kept pulling me back into their mess. Every time I thought I could shake it off, they'd find some way to worm their way back into my life. The phone calls, the texts, the guilt trips. It didn't stop, and I wasn't sure how much longer I could keep my distance. I had gotten so used to the silence in my apartment, to the peace that came with knowing I was in control of my own life. But even now, after all this time, they still found ways to get to me. I'd gotten used to ignoring their calls. I'd gotten used to shutting off their messages. But this time was different. This time, I was on the verge of something bigger, something I had been building on my own without anyone's help. Work was picking up. My streaming numbers were skyrocketing and I was gaining a solid following. People actually appreciated the content I was putting out, the time I spent playing, the stories I shared. It was all starting to come together. Then came the message. It wasn't from my mom or my sister, though. It was from an old family friend, the same one who had casually mentioned to me that my parents were struggling. "Hey, hope things are good," the message started. "I heard your parents are really in a bad spot financially. I'm not sure if you've heard, but they're asking for help from everyone. You should think about stepping in." I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the screen. Part of me wanted to respond, tell them to mind their business. Another part of me felt something I couldn't quite put my finger on. Guilt? Maybe. They were still my parents after all, and as much as I hated everything that had happened, I couldn't shake the feeling that maybe, just maybe, I should at least do something. But then I remembered how they had treated me, how they had taken advantage of me for years, and how they had never once treated me like I mattered. They were in this mess because of their own decisions. They had spent years pouring money into my sister's endless demands while I worked my ass off just to keep my head above water. And now when they needed help, they thought I'd just jump in and fix it for them. I wasn't that guy anymore. I sat there for a long time thinking. It wasn't that I didn't care. I didn't want to see them struggle, but I also knew that if I stepped in now, it would be like opening the floodgates. They'd suck me back in, drag me back into their chaos, and I'd be right where I started, doing everything for them and getting nothing in return. I decided right then and there that I wasn't going back. I wasn't going to let their crisis become my responsibility. They had made their choices. They had put me second for years, and now they were paying the price. I didn't respond to the message. Instead, I threw myself back into my work, focusing on growing my stream, building connections with my followers, and working on more freelance gigs. I wasn't going to let them break my momentum. I wasn't going to let them mess with the one thing that was finally making me feel like I had control. A week later, my dad called again. I almost didn't answer, but I figured I'd at least hear him out, see if he had anything different to say. "Son," he said, his voice low, like he was trying to sound sincere, "we've been thinking a lot about everything. Your mom, she's not doing well. She's been asking for you. We miss you, son. We need you here." I wanted to laugh or maybe cry. I wasn't sure. The emotional manipulation was so blatant at this point, it was almost laughable. "We need you here," as if they hadn't spent years treating me like I was invisible. "You need me?" I asked, my voice steady. "You've always needed me when it's convenient. You needed me when you sold my stuff for my sister's clothes. You needed me when I had to fix everything you screwed up. But when it comes down to it, where were you when I needed anything? You've never been there for me. You don't get to turn it around now and expect me to come running." There was silence on the other end. I could hear him breathing, trying to figure out what to say. He didn't have anything to say because deep down he knew I was right. I understand, he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper, but I hope one day you'll come back. I'm sorry, son. I'm really sorry. I didn't reply. I didn't have to. I was done with the apologies. I was done with the promises that never meant anything. I was done trying to fix things for people who never even tried to fix themselves. I'm not coming back, I said, my voice firm. I'm not the one who's messed everything up. You have to fix this on your own. And with that, I hung up. That night, I couldn't sleep. Part of me still felt something, some lingering doubt. What if I was being too harsh? What if deep down they really did want to make it right, but the other part of me, the part that had learned the hard way, knew this was the right choice. They had shown me time and time again that they didn't care about me, not unless it benefited them. And I wasn't going to let them drag me back into their world of manipulation and guilt. So I pushed forward. I kept building my life brick by brick. No more looking back, no more second-guessing my decision. They weren't going to get the best of me anymore. I was moving on. It's funny how things work out. Sometimes you think you've left something behind for good, only to realize that it's always lurking in the background trying to pull you back, and that's what happened when I started to really feel like I had control over my life. When I thought I was finally done with the family drama, they threw one last curveball my way. I was at home sitting at my desk getting ready for a late-night stream when I got a notification. It was from my sister. I couldn't even remember the last time I'd heard from her, but there it was. "You're really going to ignore everything that's going on, huh?" The message read. "Mom's in the hospital. You're still not going to come back?" I stared at the screen for a few seconds, the weight of it sinking in. Of course, she was still playing the victim. Of course, she was still trying to make me feel guilty. I wasn't surprised. Not really. She'd always done this, throwing herself into the role of the helpless, needy one, knowing I'd eventually cave in, but I wasn't going to fall for it. Not this time. The truth was, I had been expecting this message. Hell, I knew it was only a matter of time before they tried to rope me back into their mess. But this time, it felt different. I had come too far. I'd made a life for myself that didn't include them, and I wasn't about to let them pull me back into the chaos, even if it was wrapped up in a pretty little hospital gown. I took a deep breath and started typing. "No," I wrote. "I'm not coming, and I'm done playing this game. You and Mom have had your chances. I've spent my whole life being dragged into your mess, and I'm not doing it anymore. Not for anyone." I sent it, and for the first time in a long time, I felt calm. Like this was the final piece of the puzzle falling into place. The next few hours were quiet. I streamed, answered questions from my followers, and just lived. For the first time, I wasn't thinking about what was happening on the other side of the phone screen. The world kept spinning, and I was no longer tied to the past. My life was mine to control, and no one was going to change that. But it wasn't over. A couple of days later, I received another message, this time from my dad. It was short, to the point, and almost strange. "I'm proud of you. Always have been." It was like a slap in the face. I didn't know whether to laugh or feel anything at all. After all the years of neglect, of watching my sister get everything while I was pushed aside, this was his big attempt at making things right. A single text message with a vague "I'm proud of you" was supposed to erase years of emotional neglect, of making me feel like I wasn't enough. I didn't respond. What was there to say? He hadn't been proud of me when I needed him. He hadn't been proud of me when I was the one doing all the work, when I was the one holding the family together. He hadn't been proud of me when he sold my gaming PC without a second thought. And now, with everything on the line, he sent me a text like this was supposed to make up for it. I wasn't playing that game anymore, so I just sat there for a while, letting the silence settle. I didn't need to answer him. I didn't need to say anything. I had already made my peace. As the days went by, the silence from my family grew louder. They tried to reach out a few more times, but I didn't respond. I didn't have to. They had made their choices, and I had made mine. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It wasn't about making them suffer. It was about me. About me finally living the life I had always been denied. I had spent years being the good son, doing everything for them, always second to my sister's needs, always the one to pick up the pieces. But that was over now. I was building something for myself. I was finally able to focus on what I wanted without anyone's expectations or manipulations hanging over me. My streaming channel grew even more, and my freelance work kept coming in. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving. I didn't need them to validate me. I didn't need their approval. I had done it on my own. One night, while scrolling through social media, I saw my sister's post. She was showing off some new luxury item, something that she didn't even need, but it was just another way for her to rub her perfect life in my face. For a moment, I felt that familiar frustration rise in me, the same frustration I'd felt for years, but it was different now. I wasn't angry, I wasn't bitter. I just didn't care anymore. I kept scrolling, because in the end, the best revenge wasn't watching them struggle or trying to make them feel bad. The best revenge was living my life without them. The best revenge was proving to myself that I didn't need their approval to be successful, to be happy.